You're listening to Masonry Principles, your guide to building better buildings, with hosts Amanda Badian and Phil Leden. Thanks for listening to Masonry Principles. Today, Phil and I will be talking with Jason Laverty with SolaBlock. Thanks for being on, Jason.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm really excited. I know Paul kind of gave you a plug in one of our episodes, Paul Cantarella out of Massachusetts, and we thought it would be great to have you on. I don't think the world knows about SolaBlock now, because I know I was introduced to it at the MCAA mid-year meeting last year. So please, let's just dive right into it. Give us the history, and let's see where the conversation takes us.
Absolutely. So SolaBlock came as an idea, crazy enough, as all ideas happen, at a Thanksgiving get-together between myself and my other co-founder, Pat Quinlan. And it was at my uncle's house out in Beverly, Mass. And we were sitting around with a beer and a napkin, and Pat came to me with this idea of putting a solar panel into a brick. I was doing masonry at the time, actually teaching for the International Masonry Institute out in Western Massachusetts at the Job Corps in Chicopee. And Pat was just finishing up some solar work down in Washington, D.C., and had moved back to the Hadley, Massachusetts area. And we kind of started from there. And then we met the year after at Thanksgiving. I said, where are you at with this? And, I was still pretty intrigued. And he said, I'm thinking about putting it on a block now. And I said, that's a great idea. And we traded numbers and got together. And in 2012, we just started working on this stuff in our garage. And here we are. You fast forward from there, and we've gained patents over the years. We're patented completely here in the United States.
Wow.
North America. Exciting news for us. We just received our EU patents.
Oh, wow.
So that was a huge milestone.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And we've been slowly, letting the cat out of the bag with this product. And we were at the World of Concrete this past year. We were featured in the MCAA magazine back in June of this past year. And, we're in our final stages of testing. So basically, to wrap your head around it, it is a 4-inch concrete masonry unit that is manufactured specifically for SolaBlock based on our design. And it is embedded with a solar panel to produce electricity and utilize those outside wall spaces that are typically there. Either they have brick or split face or ground face, but there's a lot of wall space out there in the world. And we're looking at utilizing that space to start generating electricity as well as becoming carbon neutral.
Right. And that's such a key word right now in the designer realm. And are you a mason by trade, and Paul is a solar expert by trade? What are your backgrounds?
Oh, so it's Pat.
Oh, Pat, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I am a mason by trade. I've been in the Bricklayers Union since 1999 and worked my way through that, still in the local 3 Boston, and worked out in the field, and then got a job with the International Masonry Institute teaching and doing apprenticeship upgrades and OSHA trainings, and then started teaching full time, and then tried to go out on my own with a restoration company. And then I met with Pat, and he really intrigued me about this crazy idea, and been working on this for the past 3 years full time. And Pat's background is in the renewable energies sector. He started in wind and then got into solar. He actually worked for National Renewable Energy Labs, NREL, as part of tracking solar pricing. And he also worked in the White House underneath the Clinton administration and Al Gore, and tracked those pricing. And that's when the aha moment happened for him to say that solar's becoming so cheap that it can almost go anywhere.
Right.
He started thinking about this idea and brought me in for my masonry expertise. And here we are today.
That's amazing.
I mean, I think one of the big things that often gets brought up with masonry is, our carbon footprint. So I mean, I think your product is very timely and interesting. I wasn't super familiar with it before Paul had brought it up, but I think there's a definitely an opportunity here to market masonry as being more carbon neutral. I mean, are you stuck on veneers? Is that what your market is going to be, or can you envision it potentially going single life load bearing type projects in the future? I mean, how does the PV panel get embedded in the block, and can it only be a 4-inch block? I guess would be my questions.
So currently, our current design is a 4-inch unit. Years ago, when we first started, we were actually working in the structural unit 8-inch world. We pivoted to the 4-inch block because we looked at it and said we were able to capture retrofits as well, potentially, with going with a single veneer, as well as gaining height on buildings. Once you hit that first relieving angle, you can keep going up with a veneer. So it gave us a much more broader area to introduce our product. But once this product goes to launch and we gain some traction, we're definitely going to be going into the structural world, 8-inch, 12-inch units with this application.
So as far as like interconnectivity, I mean, each block gets its own PV panel. Are they all connected somehow, or how does that? I mean, I don't want to get into your trade secrets or anything, but if you could share a little bit of just how the system works,
Yeah,
just so I can understand it.
absolutely. So the blocks are laid individually. There's really minimal impact to the masonry world in terms of, oh my God, how are we going to lay these? It's a 4-inch block. At its heart, it's still a block. And once the mason builds the entire wall, then the electrician comes in and then hooks them up individually. There's a connector that jumps the mortar joints with a cover. And once the wall is built and hooked up to that status, it's up and running. So, one of the interesting things we've gotten some feedback from potential customers, especially from the contractors, the GCs, is like, so you're telling me I can build the wall and it'll be up and running and I can use that power, the green energy power, to build out the rest of the building potentially. I said, absolutely. Because the walls are going to go up first, then the roof gets finished, and then they finish out the inside of the building. So it gives the general contractors that green niche that, oh my God, I'm going to be using some green energy here to finish the build out.
Yeah, I guess that's something I didn't even consider. I mean, have you looked at payback periods, or I mean, with your product just getting up and running? I think that would be the main thing.
Yeah, some of the general payback, it's interesting because it's a lot different than conventional solar, tilted roof systems, or farms, due to the fact that you're getting a wall. So when you roll in the fact that you have to build a wall anyways, and you take that number out, we do pretty well on a return on investment in terms of the charge above what a standard wall would cost in meeting that. So we're excited about that.
Have you also considered like noise walls, I guess, for freeways? I mean, I'm trying to think about other walls that are just out there, getting sunlight all the time.
Yeah, we've been approached by that. We actually did a case study on the Massachusetts Turnpike. The sound walls that are up currently are 20 feet high. So, in a quarter mile of those walls, we would equal 1 acre of solar farm every quarter mile.
Oh, wow.
So that's the other thing, is that we're looking at, where we live in Massachusetts, it's kind of the bottom of the Berkshires and it's country, and we have a lot of land and we see a lot of solar farms going up. But what does it do to that land? They clear cut it and put in a farm, where our stuff is going to go on a building. It takes up no land usage. It doesn't attack the roofs. And if you want to put a roof system on the building as well, you can do so. And we're just giving the end user more option to put more renewable energy on a building site than ever thought of before.
Yeah, there's a lot of walls in this world, like you mentioned before. So, as far as the goals of SolaBlock, like, what's the next step for you?
So our next step, currently we're in UL testing, which is much different than any other masonry product. Doesn't have to go through the rigorous testing that we're at. So we've already passed all of our structural, our ASTM C90 testing. We've done that, been approved. And now we're into what is in the electrical system for the electrical safety of the panels and the interconnecting system. So once we get that finished up and wrapped up, we're moving into sales. We have customers that are ready to go, that are itching, that can't wait to get this product out there, from their aspect of trying to gain lead points, carbon neutrality points, or just doing the right thing, or being ahead of the curve and saying, hey, we really like this.
Have you gotten involved with the AIA 2030 commitment?
No, we have not.
Okay. And so as far as when you're speccing it, what does the spec look like? Speccing the SolaBlock, just naming the block, or?
Yeah, it's naming the block and a system, because it's going to need an inverter to turn the DC power into usable power,
Mhm.
which we plug and play well with all inverter systems. So it's more of a wall system than it is anything else. And that's, we've been talking with Paul Cantarello Jr., who's actually going to be one of our major first installing company, certified installer, just about, how we can get this in on the specs, and, how it's going to look, and deliver a full-fledged answer to the electrician, with the electricians involved as well, in giving a full answer to the architects, so that they understand that you can use the same wall tie system, the same mortar, the same flashing you would use in a standard wall system, but it's just a little bit different.
And as far as like ideal wall system, what would you say is the perfect wall system for the SolaBlock?
Pretty straight walls, not a lot of doors and windows. We've talked to architects. We're looking at probably starting above the first set of windows and doors on the first floor, and kind of do those belt courses between the stories.
Yeah.
So above the windows and below the windowsills, and leave all the intricate detailed work to the brick or to the split face or whatever the other masonry is, cast stone, things of that nature. We play well with it at the 4-inch veneer level.
Yeah, because I mean, just thinking out loud, and I know you're gonna grow the product line, because I could see it working really well with just your regular old like warehouse construction, or the single width, if you will, like Home Depots and Walmarts.
Yeah, the pig pill boxes, we call them.
Yeah, exactly. So once you get there, I mean, you'll take over. That's going to be a big chunk of the market.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of interest from data centers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of data centers, like all the server rooms. The energy can just go right back into the servers.
Right, they use a tremendous amount of power.
Yeah.
The majority of those buildings are masonry because of fire ratings and the thermal mass. They want to keep those buildings cool.
Yeah. The fire and all that stuff.
So do these block, I mean, do they get delivered to the site on a pallet with the solar panels already on them, or are they applied to the surface of the block? I guess from an installation perspective, is it they just lay the block and it's already there, or is it something they have to physically put on then after the fact?
No, everything shows up on the site ready to go. The panels in the block, and they just get installed as they are.
And you mentioned a certified installer network. So you're going to start off with a pilot program through Cantarella and Son, and then grow your market that way. But as far as the electricians, how does that go?
It's going to be the same system. So we're working with a company by the name of Zap Electrical out of Palmer, Massachusetts, and they're able to serve our needs. And we're going to start doing it the same way.
Oh, this is really exciting. I'm so glad we got to talk about it. Yeah, this is such a great time because of the carbon neutrality, and like that's such a hot topic with these AE firms. And I mean, I hope nothing but the best for you guys.
I really appreciate it. The carbon neutrality is a really big sticking point now. People are actually more interested in that than they are in the power generation. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, oh, okay, you pay for this wall, it costs a little bit more, and you get electricity. And oh, by the way, it becomes carbon neutral. And then because of how fast we become carbon neutral by generating electricity, we actually become carbon negative, which is absolutely unheard of right now. So by the generation of the green energy is what's allowing us to become carbon neutral. So when you offset those costs over time, that power generation, in 3.5 years, one block becomes carbon neutral. So
Wow.
after 4 years, you become carbon negative. So you can start chomping up carbon on other embedded carbon situations such as structural steel, structural concrete, other products that we know we cannot right now get the carbon out of.
And that's without even considering carbon sequestration of the units themselves, because we know that our block is going to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere. So, I mean, I think that would just further increase the carbon neutrality or negativity of the units, correct? Because all those numbers are just based on the solar panels, not carbonation.
Right. So I've been working with Nick Lang over at where are they? The NC.
NCME.
Yeah. So Nick Lang and I have been, back and forth about a lot of this. I've been on a couple of their podcasts and different things with them. And they're super excited about this. They're the ones that did our C90 testing for us. And they were blown away. They were like, this stuff is unbelievable.
And what will the maintenance look like of, once you have the wall up? How long does the solar panel last? Like, I guess, yeah, what's the lifespan of it?
Yeah, so we've done some testing up at the University of Massachusetts. We're confident we're at a 40-year life expectancy with the panel, which a lot of people kind of go, you got to be kidding me, because most panels are lasting 15 to 20 years right now. The reason for that is because the block is a thermal sink. So it's keeping it running cooler. It's keeping those high temperatures down, and it's controlling that environment much nicer. And the solar just loves living in the concrete, and that's what gives us our long lifespan.
And is there anything you have to do as far as maintenance of the solar panel or of the block itself?
I would say possibly maybe a cleaning once in a while, but nothing
Mhm.
crazy. If you get a lot of dirt and grime on it, it may want to get power washed, but nothing beyond that.
What about building elevations and orientation? I mean, does that matter? I'm trying to think about. I mean, I'm no expert at all, but I mean, sun azimuths, and I know with the solar panel farms, they obviously change the angle of the panels based on seasonal changes and just where the sun is at. Being just in a vertical orientation, how does that work? Are there building elevations where this wouldn't work or wouldn't be as efficient?
The south is the best south orientation. You're going to get the most yield out of. The east and west works well. The west is actually kind of interesting because you're looking at peak power times as well. And your peak power times typically happen in the afternoon. So if you decide to do a west wall and you really want to attack your peak power usage, you can really benefit by putting SolaBlock on a west wall for that. We have, some really early studies that we actually work facing north. Product works in its own shadow. The reason for that is because it is vertical.
Huh.
The science behind solar is tilted solar collects light from direct sunlight only because of its tilt. When you put it vertically, you're able to collect indirect light, you're able to collect all spectrums of light as well as direct light. So we're really excited about that. And here in the Northeast, and I know you guys know it quite well, this is the snow. So we don't have any snow coverage, where tilted solar on average is down about a month a year of production.
Yeah, I was thinking about that from a maintenance perspective because I mean that's a lot of the challenges they have.
Yeah, we will keep producing all winter long. So in the grand scheme of things, we may not produce as much as a standard solar panel because we're not getting that high intensity light because we are vertical, but we are producing more consistently all the time.
And what will the lead time be? I know you're not quite out to market, but what is the lead time for the Sola block? Or what do you expect it to be?
Our goal is to roll out this year, this calendar year. We have
Mhm.
some projects that we'd really like to kick off of people that have really been waiting a long time. We specifically have one up in Massachusetts at Minuteman Regional Vocational School, where Dr. Boquillan really took to this about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I've been working with their students up there, doing some show and tell and teaching them how to do installations. And they set aside a building at their brand new school specifically for SolaBlock that they want to make an autonomous building. So they're going to put solar on the roof. They're going to put SolaBlock on the back and side walls of this building. And it's only a single story. I think it's 80 by 30. And they want to use it to charge the electrical vehicles that they have on campus. it's a really neat opportunity to get out there, get some kinks worked out of it, get some installations going, and go from there. So our soft goal is to hit around 100,000 units this year out the door
Okay.
with projects that we already have in the can, and then really ramp up next year so that we can kind of go through the growing pains of production, manufacturing, all of that, so we can get through the hiccups and not have to do a large customer order and feel that pinch point so much.
Right.
Do you produce so you own the patent for the unit, and do you have a producer that then you sell the mold and your patent to? And so, I mean, would you look to expand to other producers around the country, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, right now, we own the patent on the mold and we own the molds. So the molds are being used in a V3 Besser machine to make the block. And we're utilizing a local block manufacturer, Ducharme Block Manufacturing out of Chicopee, Mass. It's actually Chicopee Mason Supply. And we've been working with them for years. So they're going to be our first block manufacturer for the region. And we are looking at, obviously, because of the transport of this, reaching out to other regions and then sending the molds to them. And then the panels would then be installed in a location close to the other block manufacturer, like we are doing here.
Interesting. So then if once you grow, would Besser just make a SolaBlock mold and then that would be what they buy, the producers?
Or they would buy it through us.
Gotcha. And I'm just looking online at your website of like the different designs that you could do. Is it always just going to be the blue? So you could cover a lot of area. And what, I'm sorry, can you go back? What was the return on investment of as far as how much energy are you getting per, you said quarter mile?
Oh, yeah. So if we did a quarter mile, it equals an acre of solar farm.
And how much energy does an acre of solar farm, like what does that equal?
It's all location based. It's difficult
Okay.
when you start talking about power numbers. It's very different because the other thing too is that because we're on the building, we're not utilizing the grid. So we're behind where it's actually called net metering. So the building owners are actually able to utilize our power first instead of using the grid power to transmit that. When you look at that, you're looking at all these different power costs. So each city, town, each, whether it be, around here, we have Westfield, we have a gas and electric, which is a local company. And then you have these larger suppliers like National Grid. They all charge a different rate depending on where you're at. So it's very difficult. It's a very site specific number.
Mm-hmm.
In general, we produce around 7 watts peak or per unit per block.
Okay.
So if you do a rough numbers, if you did a 20 by 30 wall area, okay, you would be producing around 3 to 4 kilowatt hours of production, which equals about a standard household roof system of power out of a 20 by 30 wall section.
Wow. This is just all really interesting. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm really excited to see where you go and how you grow. And you're going to have the support of so many groups. And as far as, educating the architects and engineers, is there anything that the associations can do to help you?
That's our big next step is really, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you say education. Because it is a new product and it is really outside the box, the education about what you can do with it and then what it gets you in return is going to be paramount. People either get it or they're like, oh, they dismiss it. It's kind of funny, but the people that get it, they look at buildings in a whole new light. They start looking up and going, oh my God, this could all be producing energy right now.
Right. And the energy savings alone, do you have those kind of numbers to share eventually?
Oh, we will. That's where we're really looking at. We have one test wall up now. We're looking at getting more test walls, larger test walls, so that we can really start getting that data because those are the questions that people are asking. And those are the difficult answers to give for us. It's all based on computer models at this point.
Right.
And then, like I said, with the differences in power, cost, and generation, it's really a science behind it. that I don't want it to be too sciencey. I want people to understand it for what it is and look at it and say, okay, we're doing this for all of these reasons. And it's a product that answers multiple questions on a project. It checks so many different boxes, from being LEED, we're using recycled material in the block. We're using local labor. We're manufacturing it local. It's all made here in the United States. Never mind that, right now our supply chain is strictly just Massachusetts. 100% made and manufactured right here in my home state, which is amazing to pull off.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that, we're creating a lot of green energy jobs with this. And that's where, not to speak about Paul or the masonry industry in general, but we're offering right now the chance for the masonry industry to get into the green energy sector. Whereas before it was strictly for the electricians.
Another piece of the market.
Yep. And hopefully it gains market share back on projects that might be saying, oh, we want to use a lot of glass or we want to use a lot of wood. Well, guess what? Here you go. It's kind of kicking masonry into the new age.
Well, making it more competitive. I know Phil and I talk about it a lot as far as how to stay relevant in the industry and keep people interested in masonry. And I think this product just proves another thing that we're doing as an industry to stay relevant, to have these conversations with the architects and engineers, that it's not a product of the past. We're still very much here and we're still very much able to work with you.
Right. And even with the young people, they're interested in becoming an installer of this because it is green energy versus it just being masonry.
Right. It's got a couple components to make it diverse.
Yeah, they look at it with a different, set of eyes at this point. That, oh, wow, that's interesting because it's doing this.
So once these are installed, and I keep watching this video on loop, but I'm just trying to imagine it in real time. Once the unit or the wall veneer is installed, do you just wash it down with, like you said, a power washer, or can you put an acid clean? I can't imagine you can put an acid cleaner to it. So like, how do you clear all the mortar off?
It's just a power washer. We actually have labels that cover the panels.
Okay.
So let's call it's a sticker that goes over the panel. And what it does, it helps the mason understand the polarity of the block. So they have to go in positive to negative. That's the only difference. The way the labels are manufactured is that it says SolaBlock across it. So when the mason lays it positive to negative, it says SolaBlock. You get to the next course, you take the blocks, you flip them upside down. So SolaBlock is upside down. And then you run it back the other way. So that's how your strings run for the electricians. And then that keeps all the mortar droppings and potential trawl scrapes and things like that off the panel itself, as well as it keeps the panels dark so they're not working. So out in the field hooking them up, they can test them with a meter and not have to worry about getting any sort of shock until it's fully hooked up. Mm-hmm. And then when the mason comes back to clean, they peel all the stickers and clean it.
Okay. Very cool. I can't wait to see it in real life. And again, I'm definitely going to make the trip over to Massachusetts, and I want to see it live action right in my backyard.
Yep. So our big plan, for this upcoming spring is to replace our older test wall at Chicopee Mason Supply. So we have a wall up there for the public to look at. It's an older technology, and we're in the process now of making units to replace that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we sign off?
No, I really wanted to thank you and put a plug out to any architecture firm that's really looking at going into a whole new world of masonry. Please reach out to myself or drop a line on SolaBlock.com and follow us wherever you can. We're all over the place.
Thank you, Jason, for being on here. And if you enjoyed what you were listening to, please feel free to share this with whether it be coworkers or friends, but you've heard it here, the latest and greatest technology for masonry and how we're staying relevant in the industry. Like he said, if you have any questions, feel free to go to their website. It's SolaBlock.com, and have a great day. Thank you for listening to this episode of Masonry Principles. To continue the conversation, be sure to reach out to us by visiting masonryprinciples.com.